Today we are going to talk about ionic bonding and what happens when one atom of each element isn't enough for both to satisfy the octet rule and form a bond. So before we talked about how we can form a bond when one atom of each element is enough to satisfy the octet rule. So what I mean by that is if we had sodium and chlorine. Sodium has one valence electron because it's in the column with the 1 on top. Chlorine has 7 because it's in the column with the 7 on top. Na, sodium is going to lose because it has less than 4. And it's going to lose 1 valence electron because it only has 1 valence electron. Chlorine has 7, so it is going to gain. It has more than 4 valence electrons, which means it's going to gain. And to get to 8, it's only going to gain 1 more valence electron. So because sodium wants to lose 1 and chlorine wants to gain 1, sodium will just give its valence electron to chlorine. And then this is our ionic bond, and it forms NaCl. Both of them then meet the octet rule because sodium got rid of all of its valence electrons, and chlorine gained 1 and now has 8. So what happens when we have two elements like, if we had, let's do sodium again, but let's do sulfur this time. So we know sodium is going to have 1 valence electron. Sulfur is going to have 6 because it's in the column with 6 valence electrons. You want to draw the unpaired valence electrons towards the center because those will be the ones used for bonding. And so we know sodium is going to lose 1 valence electron. Sulfur, however, is going to gain 2. It has 6 already. Those are the ones in blue, and we're going to need to gain 2 more valence electrons to get to 8. In order for sulfur to meet the octet rule, we are going to need more than 1 sodium, because if we give up this sodium valence electron, this sodium met the octet rule because it lost all its valence electrons. However, sulfur has not met the octet rule because it still needs to gain 1 valence electron. So in order for sulfur to meet the octet rule, we can just add on another sodium atom. Again, sodium is going to lose 1, and now sulfur only needs to gain 1. So that 1 valence electron is going to go with the unpaired valence electron in sulfur. And then sulfur has met the octet rule because now it has 8. It gained 2, 1 from each sodium, and this sodium has met the octet rule because it lost 1 valence electron. And so now we have Na2S, sodium sulfide. So when you are doing bonding, if one of them doesn't meet the octet rule, you're going to have to add another atom of the other element. So in this case, sulfur didn't meet the octet rule, so we had to add another sodium. Let's do another one. Let's do, calcium and phosphorus. So calcium is Ca. It's going to have 2 valence electrons because it's in the column with 2, and then phosphorus is P, and it's going to have 5 because it's in the column with 5. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that calcium is going to need to lose 2, and phosphorus is going to need to gain 3. Looking at this, we know that none of them, either calcium or phosphorus, are going to meet the octet rule right away. So we are just going to start moving our electrons to try and get there. So let's do the first electron on calcium and the second electron on calcium. So now calcium has met the octet rule because it had lost 2 valence electrons. However, phosphorus has not because it still needs 1 more. It only gained 2 and it needed to gain 3. So what we're going to do is we are going to add another calcium. 1, 2. So now we can start moving these valence electrons. So now phosphorus, it gained the other valence electron. It has met the octet rule. It now has 8. However, this other calcium that we added only lost 1. It needed to lose 2. So what are we going to do? We are going to add another phosphorus atom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to get rid of that last valence electron, we are going to add it on to phosphorus. And now this calcium has met the octet rule. However, our new phosphorus still needs to gain 2 more valence electrons to get to 8, like the one above. It gained 1 and needed to gain 3, so we need 2 more. So we are going to add another calcium. 1, 2. So calcium needs to lose 2, phosphorus needs to gain 2. So we're going to move our first one and our second one. Calcium got rid of both. It had met the octet rule, and our last phosphorus has now gained 3 valence electrons, 1 from one calcium and 2 from another calcium to get to 8, and so that has made the octet rule. All of our atoms have now met the octet rule, so we are done. And our formula then becomes Ca, because our cation is listed first, the one that loses. And then we're going to write how many calciums we had. 1, 2, 3, so Ca3. And then you're going to list phosphorus, your anion, and then how many phosphoruses we had. So we had 2. So it is going to be Ca3, P2. So like I said, when you are doing ionic bonding and one of your atoms meets the octet rule but the other one doesn't, you're just going to have to add the other element and keep doing that until both and all atoms meet the octet rule.